friends, it's Miss Cathy from the Mary L. Cook Public Library. Welcome to Storytime. Do you like to draw? What do you draw with? Crayons? Colored pencils? Markers? Chalk? Well, I think you are going to enjoy our story time about drawing. I have some wonderful books and some activities to share with you. So let's get started. Open and shut them, open and shut them. Give a little clap, clap, clap. Open and shut them, open and shut them. Fold them in your lap, lap, lap. Let's get started with our first story.
When I Draw a Panda by Amy June Bates. Published by Simon & Schuster, Books for Young Readers. I love to draw. Sometimes when they say to draw a perfect circle, mine turns out a little wonky. I can draw a perfect fluffy cloud, a perfect scoop of ice cream, and a perfect flat tire. So when I draw a panda, I keep drawing more and more not perfect circles until I see a panda. Then I step back and think, what else does a panda need? He probably needs a hat, and then he is my panda. My panda draws his own way. When someone tells him to draw a castle the right way, he would rather draw it the left way. And if they tell him to draw something pretty, he draws something pretty silly. My panda shows me how to draw a dragon. Number 1, draw a squiggle. Number 2, decide which end is the head and which is the tail. Number 3, draw the tail last. Sometimes when they say to draw a perfect pirate, superhero, crocodile, mad scientist, or princess, my panda prefers to draw an imperfect, superheroic, madly scientific, piratical princess crocodile. Sometimes when they say to draw a perfect bowl of fruit, my panda looks out the window and watches a butterfly. Then he thinks about what it would be like to be a butterfly until he has totally forgotten what he was supposed to be drawing. I can draw my own way too. Sometimes when they say to draw it this way, I ask why. And when they say, draw it that way, I do, but I add a unicorn horn later. Sometimes they say, that will never work, but it does. Sometimes they say, make sure you don't run out of space, but I didn't, so I do. Sometimes they can't figure out what we have drawn, and then it is a mystery, because we will never tell them. Sometimes they say, you and your panda draw too crazy, and I say, thank you. Sometimes we are supposed to draw quietly, but we can't help it. Our pencils like to roar. Sometimes lines come out of our pencils, and they are not going anywhere in particular. They are just going somewhere that makes us happy.
It's time for our first activity called I Have a Crayon. And I have several crayons that I'm going to use for this rhyme. We're going to name some colors and listen for some rhyming words. We're going to start out with, I have a crayon. I'll give it to you. Here is my crayon of blue. You've got it. I have a crayon, a lovely little fellow. Here is my crayon of yellow. Great job with your colors. I have a crayon, it's here on my head. Here is my crayon of red. I have a crayon, we can draw a circle. Here is my crayon of purple. Good job. I have a crayon, what do I see? Here is my crayon, an orange one for me. And we have one more. I have a crayon, the best I've ever seen. Here is my crayon of green. Good job with those colors. The words will be on the screen as we do our rhyme together. I have a crayon. I'll give it to you. Here is my crayon of blue. I have a crayon, a lovely little fellow. Here is my crayon of yellow. I have a crayon, it's here on my head. Here is my crayon of red. I have a crayon, we can draw a circle. Here is my crayon of purple. I have a crayon, what do I see? Here is my crayon, an orange one for me. I have a crayon, the best I've ever seen. Here is my crayon of green. You can make some beautiful pictures with these crayons. Let's get ready for our next story.
Harold and the Purple Crayon by Crockett Johnson, published by HarperCollins. One evening, after thinking it over for some time, Harold decided to go for a walk in the moonlight. There wasn't any moon, and Harold needed a moon for a walk in the moonlight, and he needed something to walk on. He made a long straight path so he wouldn't get lost, and he set off on his walk, taking his big purple crayon with him. But he didn't seem to be getting anywhere on the long straight path. So he left the path for a shortcut across a field, and the moon went with him. The shortcut led right to where Harold thought a forest ought to be. He didn't want to get lost in the woods, so he made a very small forest with just one tree in it. It turned out to be an apple tree. The apples would be very tasty, Harold thought, when they got red. So he put a frightening dragon under the tree to guard the apples. It was a terribly frightening dragon. It even frightened Harold. He backed away. His hand holding the purple crayon shook. Suddenly he realized what was happening. But by then Harold was over his head in an ocean. He came up thinking fast, and in no time he was climbing aboard a trim little boat. He quickly set sail, and the moon sailed along with him. After he had sailed long enough, Harold made land without much trouble. He stepped ashore on the beach, wondering where he was. The sandy beach reminded Harold of picnics, and the thought of picnics made him hungry. So he laid out a nice, simple picnic lunch. There was nothing but pie, but there were all 9 kinds of pie that Harold liked best. When Harold finished his picnic, there was quite a lot left. He hated to see so much delicious pie go to waste. So Harold left a very hungry moose and a deserving porcupine to finish it up. And off he went looking for a hill to climb to see where he was. Harold knew that the higher up he went, the farther he could see. So he decided to make the hill into a mountain. If he went high enough, he thought, he could see the window of his bedroom. He was tired and he felt he ought to be getting to bed. He hoped he could see his bedroom window from the top of the mountain. But as he looked down over the other side, he slipped, and there wasn't any other side of the mountain. He was falling in thin air. But luckily he kept his wits and his purple crayon. He made a balloon and he grabbed onto it. And he made a basket under the balloon big enough to stand in. He had a fine view from the balloon, but he couldn't see his window. He couldn't even see a house. So he made a house with windows, and he landed the balloon on the grass in the front yard. None of the windows was his window. He tried to think where his window ought to be. He made some more windows. He made a big building full of windows. He made lots of buildings full of windows. He made a whole city full of windows. But none of the windows was his window. He couldn't think where it might be. He decided to ask a policeman. The policeman pointed the way Harold was going anyway, but Harold thanked him. And he walked along with the moon, wishing he was in his room and in bed. Then suddenly Harold remembered. He remembered where his bedroom window was when there was a moon. It was always right around the moon. And then Harold made his bed. He got in it and drew up the covers. The purple crayon dropped on the floor, and Harold dropped off to sleep.
We're ready for a finger play for our next activity called 5 Little Crayons. You're going to need your 5 fingers for this one. And before we start, let's count to 5 together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to do a little rhyme. Listen for those rhyming words about some colors. And we'll point to each finger or crayon as we count. You'll see the words on the screen, and let's go ahead and try it together. 5 little crayons standing in a row. The first one said, "I'm red, you know." The second one said, "I'm green as a tree." The third one said, "I'm blue like the sea." The fourth one said, "I'm yellow like the sun." The fifth one said, "Being purple is fun." 5 little crayons, happy as can be, coloring pictures with you and me. Great job. We have time for one last story.
I Can Only Draw Worms by Will Mabbitt, published by Penguin Random House. This book is about worms. I can only draw worms. Here's worm 1. Here's worm 2. Here they are both together. It's hard to know which is which. I'll give the second worm glasses. That's better. Now you can tell them apart. Here's worm 3. She's a different color. No reason. I just lost my pen. Hello, worm 4. Worm 4 thinks he's in charge of all the other worms. I don't know why. Here's worm 5. She's a little sick, I'm afraid. Sick worms look just like normal worms. The next page is really exciting. Worm 6 is riding on a flying unicorn. I can't draw flying unicorns. I've drawn worm 5 again instead. Worm 6 flies his unicorn all the way to meet worm 7, who lives in outer space. On the way, worm 6 has an amazing adventure. We'll skip all that. Here's a picture of him meeting worm 7. He looks all cool, but inside he's really excited. Oh dear, there's been a dreadful accident. It's not true that if a worm is cut in half, it makes 2 worms. It makes 2 half worms. Here's worm 8, and here's worm 8 and a half. This page is blank. Worm 9 is missing. All the others are starting to get worried. Here's worm 10 instead, the last worm. She looks the same as worm 1. Oh, it is worm 1. Here's worm 10, last as usual, and look who he's found. Worm 9. She'd just gone to the bathroom. Sorry. That's okay, worm 9. Everybody has to go sometime. So now that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 and a half, 9, 10. 10 worms, all friends together. This book was about worms. I can only draw worms.
Our last activity is a drawing activity. I hope you're going to like it. I'm going to tell a story as I draw an animal. At the end, see if you can guess the animal that I drew.
One night, a little creature scurried about, looking for food. It ran around an apple tree. And took a bite out of an apple that had fallen to the ground. Then it ran to the other side of the tree and nibbled on some grass. Suddenly, there was a very loud noise which frightened it so much that it hid under a bush and curled into a ball. It's a good thing it did, because that noise was thunder. Soon big drops of rain came down. Plop, plop, plop. When the storm ended, the little critter poked his head out and saw that mushrooms had popped up in the wet grass. He ate them all up and smiled a big smile, for now his tummy was full. He returned to the bush and curled up into a ball again. Soon he was fast asleep. It was time for all the night animals to go to sleep, for the sun was making its appearance in the morning sky.
Did you guess the animal that I drew? If you guessed a hedgehog, you are absolutely right. Why don't you try to draw one too? The story is based on a drawing by Jan Brett. Her website will be on the screen if you want to check it out. I hope today's story time inspired you to do some drawing. Why not try your hand at chalk drawing? We would love to see what you come up with. Send a picture to Miss Cathy. Starting Monday, June 28th, we will have a limited supply of chalk in front of the library for you to pick up and take home. Also, we're inviting you to come and walk and read with us next week from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the park right next to the library. Look for the signs that will help you read a book as you walk through the park. This event is weather permitting, so make sure you check our website if you have a question. We are almost 1 month into our summer reading program. Have you signed up for it yet? I hope so. If you haven't, make sure that you check the website that you see on the screen and register online for our summer reading program, Tales and Tales. Start recording the time you spend reading so that you can earn virtual chances to win some great prizes. Well, it's time to say goodbye. So let's tickle the clouds, tickle your toes, turn around and tickle your nose. Reach down low, reach up high. Story time's over, so wave goodbye. See you next week.